AI, it's inescapable these days, right? Every time you turn around, there's a new headline about AI changing the world.
Yeah, that's a lot.
But how much of it is real and how much of it is hype? Well, that's what we're diving into today. We're going to try to separate the AI fact from fiction with with a pretty interesting stack of sources, I'd say. We've got recent articles, we've got surveys, we've even got a peek into how some pretty big companies are using or maybe not using AI.
Should be fun.
One thing I thought was fascinating, and this is from the Replit survey, was this anecdote about managers using AI to analyze their team's code.
Oh, yeah, I saw that.
I mean, imagine having a tool that can give you insights into work that maybe you don't even fully understand yourself.
Yeah, definitely changes things up a bit.
Yeah. It's exciting, but it's also a little, I don't know, a little unnerving, right?
Yeah, I could see I'd be a little both.
So to help us unpack all of this, I've got our expert here with us today. They always have a knack for kind of cutting through the noise and getting to the heart of what really matters.
Well, I don't know about always, but I do try.
So let's jump right into that Replit story. What are your thoughts on managers using AI to get this, for lack of a better term, this deep dive into their team's work, especially from a workplace dynamic kind of perspective?
Well, I mean, it's fascinating to think about the possibilities, but also the potential downsides. It feels like this kind of AI could really shift the entire, power dynamic within a team.
Oh, interesting. How so?
Well, think about it. You've got a manager who, even if they don't have, say, coding expertise, they can suddenly understand and critique the work of their developers in detail.
Yeah, that's true.
So it could be a good thing. Could lead to better feedback, right?
Right.
But there's also the potential for some serious downsides. I mean, you're talking about increased scrutiny,
Yeah.
probably a lot more micromanagement. What happens when the AI flags something as an error, but it's actually a creative solution or even just a more efficient solution that the manager doesn't quite grasp?
Yeah, you're going to have a lot of frustrated developers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're going to have, I think, a breakdown of trust on both sides, which is never good.
Yeah, nobody wants that.
And here's the thing, this isn't just limited to coding. You can apply this same logic to, I don't know, to design work, to writing, to financial analysis, to really any kind of specialized field where managers might not have the deep expertise that their team has, but the AI can kind of fill in those gaps in a way that could be really, I don't know, really impactful, for better or for worse.
It's almost like giving managers X-ray vision into their teams, which could be powerful, but yeah, also a little scary if not used carefully, like you said.
Absolutely.
Speaking of potential pitfalls, let's talk about Chegg. Remember Chegg?
Yeah.
The online tutoring platform.
Yeah, I remember Chegg.
Issue 11 of the Synthetic Work newsletter had this really, I thought, really interesting take on their struggles against free AI tools like ChatGPT. And they called it the Nutella threshold. Have you heard of that?
Nutella threshold. I can't say I have.
So basically, they're saying that students, they'd rather just have I don't know, the versatility of like a cheap multi-purpose tool like ChatGPT than a more specialized paid service like Chegg.
Oh, I see. So, like, why buy Nutella when you can get a whole buffet for the same price or even cheaper?
Yeah, exactly. And Chegg is kind of the Nutella in this scenario.
I got it. Makes sense.
So, thinking about that, I mean, what are your thoughts on, Chegg is kind of a cautionary tale? What can other businesses learn from that, especially when it comes to these large language models?
I mean, I think Chegg's situation really highlights, the importance of adapting quickly to these kinds of disruptions in the market.
Right.
They kind of assumed that their paid service would always be valuable, but they were slow to adapt to, the rise of these free AI tools.
Right. And as those free tools became more powerful, more versatile, it seems like Chegg's value proposition just kind of
Yeah, it just kind of eroded.
it eroded.
Yeah, it's almost like they didn't have what's the word, a proprietary data moat.
Like a moat around their castle.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't
Yeah.
have that unique data advantage that made them stand out, so the free AI tools were able to kind of outcompete them on, well, pretty much everything.
So it's not just about using AI, it's about using it in a way that gives you an edge over your competition, an edge that can't just be easily replicated.
Absolutely. You got to
Mhm.
find those unique applications for AI that really leverage your specific data, your expertise, your understanding of what your customer wants, all of that.
It's like finding your unique AI superpower.
Exactly, your AI superpower. And, when we're talking about industries that might be facing some serious AI disruption, you got to talk about call centers. In fact, The CEO of Tata Consulting, I think they're a pretty big player in IT.
Yeah, they are.
He actually predicted that AI is going to eliminate call centers within a year.
A year. Wow. That's a pretty bold prediction. I mean, is that even realistic? What makes him so confident?
It's certainly an attention-grabbing headline. While I can appreciate the optimism, I think a year might be a bit of a stretch. I mean,
Hmm.
don't get me wrong, AI is definitely changing the game when it comes to customer service, but completely eliminating call centers within a year, I'm not so sure about that.
What's holding things back? If it's not the technology itself, is it more about the companies? Like, are they ready to actually use it effectively?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's not just about having the smart AI. It's about companies being ready to use it in a smart way. Proactively addressing customer complaints, for example.
Hmm.
That requires a level of, I don't know, organization that a lot of companies just haven't quite figured out yet.
So it's almost like it's not just about the AI being ready, it's about the company being ready for the AI.
It's a two-way street, definitely.
Okay, so what would that look like though? Like how could AI be used proactively in customer service? Paint me a picture.
Okay, so imagine this. You're shopping online, and there's a slight delay with your delivery, right?
Happens all the time.
Right. But before you even have a chance to pick up your phone and complain,
Yeah.
the company's AI system, which has been, analyzing your shopping behavior, maybe your past interactions, it anticipates your frustration,
Yeah.
and it automatically sends you a discount code for your next purchase or something.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so it's not just about reacting to problems, it's about getting ahead of them.
I like it. It's like preemptive customer service.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that kind of proactive service, it requires a whole different way of thinking for a lot of companies.
Yeah, not to mention probably a whole different set of legal considerations too.
Oh, absolutely. We could do a whole other deep dive on that, actually.
Mhm.
But for now, the main point is it's a lot more complex than just, having a bot answer the phone and say, how can I help you?
So if a total call center shutdown is not realistic, what's the most likely scenario then? What's a more, I don't know, a more realistic vision of how AI might impact customer service in the near future?
I think what we're more likely to see is AI drastically improving the customer service experience, not necessarily eliminating it entirely. So think about, sophisticated chatbots,
Mhm.
incredibly realistic synthetic voices. Imagine calling customer service and talking to a bot that sounds like a real human, but not only that, it actually understands your entire history with the company and responds with empathy and accuracy in real time. That's the kind of thing that's becoming possible.
Okay, yeah. That's still a huge change. Even it doesn't mean the literal end of call centers as we know them.
Right. Oh, definitely. And look, while some jobs might be lost in the process, we also have to remember that AI is going to create new opportunities as well. It's not all doom and gloom. In fact, that same CEO who predicted the end of call centers, he also talked about the growing demand for tech talent.
Right, right. It's like they say when one door closes, another one opens.
Exactly.
And that actually leads perfectly into our next topic, which is, well, navigating the job market in the age of AI because it's changing so quickly.
It really is.
We've got to keep up. And we have Hilke Schellman's book, The Algorithm, which dives into some of the, I think, often overlooked flaws in how AI is being used in hiring, which is, I think, a really, really important perspective to consider.
It's something that people don't always think about, but it's becoming more and more relevant every day. And the book does a great job of kind of pulling back the curtain and showing us the imperfections, especially in the context of hiring.
Give us an example. What's something specific that the book highlights?
Sure. So Shellman talks about these biased CV screening tools. So this is where the AI might actually filter out candidates based on things like, get this, their address, maybe even their hobbies.
Wait, seriously, AI is like judging our hobbies now.
I know it sounds crazy, but it's happening. And the thing is, it gets even more concerning when you start thinking about situations where high-performing employees might be flagged for redundancy or maybe passed over for promotions just because an AI didn't like their performance in some online game or
Right.
something.
So it seems like it's not just a question of whether AI can do the job, but whether we can trust it to make, fair and unbiased decisions, which, as your example shows, is not always a given.
Exactly. And that's where, human oversight, critical thinking, all of that becomes so important. We can't just blindly trust these algorithms. We need understand their limitations and use them as tools to inform our decisions, not to actually make those decisions for us.
Right. It's a good reminder that AI is only as good as the data it learns from and the people who are, programming it. And speaking of data, let's shift gears a bit and talk about how this whole AI revolution is actually playing out in different companies. We've got this really fascinating survey from the Federal Reserve Bank of Dallas, And it kind of gives us a glimpse into the experiences and expectations that businesses have when it comes to AI.
Yeah, it's a good one.
What were some of your key takeaways from that?
Well, I thought one of the most interesting things was that the survey really highlighted this gap between how companies think AI is going to impact their costs versus what they're actually experiencing once they start implementing it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, a lot of companies, they jump into AI thinking it's going to be this magic bullet for reducing expenses, like we're going to automate everything and it's going to save us tons of money. But the reality is it's rarely that simple.
Right, it's never as simple as it sounds.
Never. And, the survey actually did a good job of kind of showing that difference in perspective between companies that haven't actually used AI yet and those that have. The ones who haven't used it are much more, I guess, optimistic or maybe even naive about what it can actually achieve. While the ones who've actually gone through the process, they have a much more, I guess, grounded view of what's really possible.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's like until you've actually tried to implement AI in your business, it's easy to kind of have these grand visions of what it can do. But
Yeah.
then you actually get into the weeds and you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is a lot more complicated than I thought.
Exactly. It's never as easy as it looks, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of it comes down to, I think, how companies approach the whole AI implementation process.
It's like you can't just sprinkle AI on top of your existing processes and expect everything to magically get better.
Exactly. It's not like fairy dust or something.
Right.
You got to be more intentional about it.
So to make this a little more concrete, let's actually look at some companies that are using AI in interesting ways. We've got Moderna, the pharmaceutical company. They're reportedly using, get this, hundreds of custom GPTs. Then there's SK Telecom over in South Korea, and they're fine-tuning ChatGPT specifically for customer service in Korean, which is fascinating.
Yeah, I saw that.
And, well, we can't forget United Airlines, who are using AI to, well, help their introverted pilots.
Right,
So,
right.
so kind of a mixed bag there, from cutting edge to maybe a little more, I don't know, mundane.
Yeah, definitely a spectrum of use cases.
Yeah. So Moderna, hundreds of custom GPTs. What do you even make of that? I mean, it sounds impressive, but is it effective?
Well, it definitely sounds like they're going all in on the AI front.
Yeah.
But instead of just having, one or two big AI models, they've gone with this kind of micro application approach where each of these GPTs is designed for a very, very specific task, which, could be really powerful. But it also raises some interesting questions, I think, about workflow consistency, even just the learning curve for
And
employees.
how do you keep track of it all?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine trying to manage 400 different AI tools,
Mm.
each with its own, quirks and ways of doing things. It could be incredibly efficient or it could be completely chaotic. I guess it all depends on how well they've thought through the implementation.
Yeah. Right. It's like having 400 chefs in the kitchen, each with their own recipe for success, but nobody to coordinate the whole menu.
Yeah. Or maybe even worse, like nobody who speaks all of their languages.
Right, exactly. So SK Telecom, they're taking kind of a different approach. They're focusing on adapting existing AI, like ChatGPT, but making it work really, really well in a specific context, in this case, Korean language customer service.
Yeah.
What does that tell us about the importance of really tailoring AI to your specific needs?
Well, it just goes to show that it's not enough to just have AI. You got to know how to make it work for you, for your business, for your customers, for
Yeah.
your specific language even. In SK Telecom, they seem to get that. They're
Right.
not just throwing AI at the problem. They're taking the time to actually understand it, to fine-tune it, to make it their own, which I think that's where the real value is, honestly.
Yeah, it's about working smarter, not just harder when it comes to AI. And then we have United Airlines using AI for things like, delay notifications and helping pilots with announcements.
Right. Very practical applications.
Practical, sure, but not exactly revolutionary, right?
Well, it does make you wonder,
Well,
doesn't it?
it does.
I mean, are we so focused on finding uses for AI,
Yeah.
even for tasks that don't really need it, that we're missing opportunities for simpler, more elegant solutions?
It's like buying a fancy robotic chef just to make toast.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sometimes the simplest solution is the best solution.
And that brings us to, I think, the big question that I want to leave our listeners with today. In all of this excitement to embrace AI for everything, are we forgetting about the value of simplicity, of human ingenuity, of sometimes just, taking a step back from the algorithm and thinking for ourselves?
I think that's a question we all need to be asking ourselves.
It is, and we'd love to hear your thoughts on it. What are your experiences with AI? What are your hopes? What are your concerns? Because this is a conversation that is far from over, and we want you to be a part of it.
Absolutely.
So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and remember that sometimes the most human thing we can do is to step back from the algorithm and think for ourselves.